Hello, listeners. This is Mike Sollosi. Retro Encounter is only a few weeks away from episode 150, and we're planning to make it a mailbag episode in which we respond to as many listener emails as we can. So if you wanted to send us a discussion topic idea, a question about the podcast, or a suggestion for a Game Journal episode in the future, please send an email to retro@rpgfan.com before we record the episode in mid-August. We are 100% going to choose at least one future episode from listener suggestions, but first we need those emails. So again, the email address is retro@rpgfan.com. We will respond to as many messages as we can in episode 150. But that's enough for me. Now here is the latest episode of Retro Encounter. Hello, and welcome to episode 145 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Weekly Podcast. I am Mike Sollosi, and I am your host today, as I have been many times in the past. Now, if you've been following along with us in a relatively linear manner, you might remember that we are still in Lunar Month. RPG Fan is celebrating our past as LunarNet.com by having 4 episodes in a row discussing and celebrating the Lunar series of video games on the Sega CD and Saturn and PlayStation 1, and briefly on the GBA and PlayStation Portable, but maybe the less said about that last one, the better. So we're finished talking about Lunar 1. Rob, Leona, and I had a lot of fun talking about that game, but now our panel has expanded for the Lunar 2 discussion, and let's introduce all of them now, starting with our returning podcasters, Rob Fenner.
It's I, bringing to the table the dance moves of Jean in the physique of Borgin. Hello, thank you for having me.
Gypsy Magic. And also, Leona McCallum.
Hi there. I'm Leo fangirl.
I am also a Leo fangirl, so there will be plenty to talk about with him. And joining us for Lunar 2, due to scheduling conflicts, they could not join us for Lunar 1, but we are expanded to 5 now, starting with Chris Gebauer.
Oh, hey, everybody. I made it.
And also, Twitch streamer extraordinaire, Scott Clay.
I love this game and the previous game. Best games ever.
All right, that's a strong take, but we can get there. Now, I think at the very first Lunar episode, about 2 weeks ago, Rob, Leona, and I discussed our past histories with the Lunar series. We won't bore you by repeating all of that, but the abridged version is that Robert has played several versions of Lunar dating back to the Sega CD version. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, that's correct. I think I've played them all, not all the way through, but I have at least had hands-on with every version of Lunar 1.
Okay, and that is definitely not true of me. I played the PS1 versions of Lunar and Lunar 2 about 14 or 15 years ago when I was in high school, and I'm replaying them for the first time, so it has been about, I think, 14 years since playing them. But I enjoyed my replay of Lunar 1 a lot, and I'm also having fun delving back into Lunar 2. But Leona is playing the Lunar series for the first time, and so Leona, do you have early impressions on Lunar 2 so far? Just we're at roughly the halfway point. Just 2 or 3 sentences impressions.
I really like it. I really like the characters. I like the callbacks to the first game. I'm really enjoying it so far.
All right.
I like an inventory system that's all one thing.
Yes, no more like Dragon Quest but worse style individual inventories.
Yes, God, no, please.
Now, all right, Scott, please go a little longer than Rob, Leona, and I did. What is your basic personal history with Lunar 1 and 2, and how are you finding this replay?
Lunar 1 and 2, like I said before, Lunar 1 and 2, my favorite games. Lunar 2 especially is my favorite game. Easily. I play this game at least 30 times. I think I play it like almost every year. It's almost like a tradition for me at this point to play this every year at time, and I love it. I mean, there's things wrong with the games, but I just look past them most of the time because it's just so nostalgic for me to play this game again. Because not only does it fit in for everything for me for the game itself, but it's the reason why I'm here anyway. The reason why I'm here at RPG Fan, because I came here because of LunarNet. It's amazing.
Bless Lunar.
Yes.
And Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. Last month, towards the end of June, you were streaming Lunar 1 for the site on Twitch regularly. Is that right?
No, we are actually doing a Lunar stream today. The first
Okay.
Lunar. We did Lunar 2, I think, 2 years ago. It was one of the second streams we did.
This
All
is
right.
in the future, Scott. This
Yeah.
podcast is in the future.
Yeah.
Right. So a few weeks ago, you were streaming Lunar 1 for the site, and are you thinking you're going to continue into Lunar 2 after that?
We may do a redo of Lunar 2. I'm not sure. It depends on how the time frame works with Octopath coming up. So we'll see. But I would
You
love
gonna
to
do Dragon
actually
Song?
do it. No, that game doesn't exist. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what game that game is.
Yeah, I don't know what you're
That's
talking
fun.
about. I mean, it sounds like, I'm sure there was some DS game named Dragon Song, because they used every
Yeah.
possible iteration of the DS acronym. But certainly not for a Lunar game. I don't know what you're talking about there. But Chris, your turn. What is your brief personal history with the Lunar series?
Brief personal history. Okay. When I first started collecting old RPGs, one of the first, I guess, brand, well, I was going to say publishing wing, but I guess mostly through localization. All the rest of it, I collected a lot of working design games, and that got me to the Lunar series. And I played Lunar 1 for the first time last year. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Scott kind of said it has flaws, but I found it incredibly charming. And then was hoping to play it again when we were putting together these series of episodes. And I finally took this as a good reason to get into Lunar 2. And here we are.
Awesome. And yeah, we almost had all 5 of these people, and possibly even going into 6 podcasters for Lunar. There was a lot of enthusiasm among staff for this series in general, but it was due to scheduling conflicts. The Lunar 1 episodes just ended up being Rob, Leona, and I. But here we are to talk about Lunar 2. Now I have a question for you, Rob, who played these on the Sega CD games, and you brought on the Sega CD. Excuse me. You mentioned in the Lunar 1 episodes that Alex was a silent protagonist, and which might be part of why he was so boring in the Lunar 1 PS1 adaptation. Was the same true of Hero?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Hero was as talkative and and he's always been as talkative and adventurous as he was in the PS1 remake. The thing about the Lunar remakes is, like, every remake of Lunar 1 is vastly different from one another. The Silver Star story remake on Saturn that was later adapted or ported to PlayStation, that that changed the soundtrack, added the script, added in all this stuff that they didn't have time to complete when that Sega CD version dropped. However, the Sega CD Lunar 2 was already pretty much a complete game, so they've just they've tightened up a few like graphical bits and pieces. They made a few changes, some that I think are kind of for the worse, but this is. I've never played this version. I've only played the Sega CD version, and this is it's pretty much how I remember the Sega CD version being. It's really, really similar.
Are differences more like translation stuff, or?
It's pretty much the same script as far as I can tell.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely a Mr. Ed joke missing from the wagon bird at Gene's camp, but aside from that, it's about what it was.
Because it is the same localization team. Like, Working Designs did all of the Lunar games, and
that first game has a vastly expanded script for PlayStation, and that's not really the case here.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, you did also allude, maybe this was off air, that the save system in Lunar 2 for the Sega CD is a little weird.
Oh, Jesus. Working Designs and Victor Ireland have a reputation for increasing the difficulty of games that they brought over because they thought they were too easy, whatever that means. So, famously, they messed with integers for Exile, Wicked Phenomenon, and Silhouette Mirage, and made those 2 games nearly unbeatable. Lunar 2 didn't get such a bad butchering, but they did include a third currency, dragon points, which you need to save the game. So if you don't, if you're in a tough spot and you need to save, you better hope that you have a steady supply of dragon points to save. And of course, like going up levels, every time you save, you need more and more dragon points. It's a really bad and stupid system to put in a 30-hour RPG, and I'm glad that he didn't replicate it in this remake.
That's crazy.
Get that savior schnook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am extremely glad I don't have to deal with dragon points. Just hearing about them from you and briefly looking them up within the past week or two, just was almost ready to give me nightmares. But anyway, we don't have to deal with that. There's a roughly save anywhere system in Lunar 2 for the PS1 that I'm very grateful for. And anyway, the game starts out with Hero and his baby dragon compatriot Ruby exploring a big tower, running away. You meet
It's very record scratch. You might wonder how I got in this situation.
I thought that exact same thing. I was going to say that. How dare you steal my joke?
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Great minds.
Yeah.
And we're also briefly introduced to Gwyn and the greatest character in the game, Leo, while Hero is escaping the tower. When, let's see, how do I put this? Girl falls from the sky, and boy meets girl. Boy decides to help girl that fell from the sky.
She's very pretty.
Yes.
Powerful thirst in that desert.
Yeah, yes. Hero's infatuation for Lucia is a early recurring theme in this game. So, Scott, you've mentioned a couple times that this is one of the greatest games of all time, alongside its predecessor Lunar 1. So, what is your overall impression of the Hero Lucia relationship?
I mean, if you see a magical girl come down from the heavens, I think you'd be infatuated with her too. She's beautiful. She got blue hair too, so that counts. I mean, it's a little weird. I mean, but he's an adventurous person. I mean, he sees someone possibly from like out of space or somewhere. He doesn't know where she's from. I mean, I think he has a good idea maybe from the Blue Star, but at the same time, it's like,
he wants to embark on that adventure.
Yeah, it's like, this is amazing. He's the sense of adventure from him is just overflowing. He's like, now he meets someone from here. It's not even maybe like love at first sight. It's more like, I want to go where this girl goes because there's adventure waiting for me.
All right, now Scott, I'm going to ask you a very important question, and everyone else, I want your thoughts on this too. What's the better Lucia outfit, the red cloak and cape from the beginning, or the change into shorts at the caravan about 7 or 8 hours in?
The gypsy outfit for sure. The shorts, the straw, that one's much better.
All right.
Disagree. You've seen my Twitter post, and it was my most successful Twitter post to date.
I have mixed opinions. I think the drawing of the red outfit looks good, but I like the sprite of the gypsy outfit.
Interesting. Okay, Chris. Gypsy or Blue Star? Who you got?
I kind of like the regal look of the Blue Star, but it's way more practical to be going around in shorts in the desert.
Yeah, there's a desert unusually close to like tundra and snowy mountains in this game. In general, video game biomes and ecology don't often make sense, but
no, they never do. It's always like the fireplace is in the middle of the ice mountain. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but I wonder if you think to the end of Lunar 1, the Earth. The planet of Lunar, or the moon of Lunar, because I think Lunar is a moon and the Blue Star is an Earth-like planet.
Yes.
Yeah, Lunar briefly has almost all of its life and ecology stripped from it, and then it gets restored during the sort of the climax of the game at the top of the Goddess Tower. Do we think that maybe the planet's been recovering over the past 1,000 years or so? If it was briefly extremely desolate and now is sort of more desert-like and a little bit less lush than it was during Alex's time because of that, or am I overthinking it?
I think so, personally. I mean, it seems like a world that has gone through a long ago cataclysm and that is recovered, and it literally did. And it seems like things are just finally starting to become more habitable.
Yeah, you definitely see that through the rest of the game, especially toward the later end parts of the game, and especially, I guess, it's more of a spoiler, so it's probably past where we're at right now. But like, and you kind of learn more about that as you go through the game.
Okay, and I guess I should mention, I rarely mention spoilers on this podcast because it's implied that we spoil the hell out of every game we're talking about. But listeners, we are going to discuss this only through the first half of Lunar 2, ending after the events of the city of Pentagoulia. So we're going to get right into all of those dragon caves with the second part of this podcast next week. But yeah, I remember playing the end of Lunar 1 a week or a couple weeks ago. Again, we're living in the future here for the podcast. And, someone who studied ecology and geology at university was pretty taken aback by, like, having all of a planet's life disappeared and restored, and it's like, no, it takes millions of years to fully recover from an extirpation or extinction level event like that. So just, like, I think that maybe portraying Lunar as a recovering world made a little more sense, but again, I'm probably overthinking it. But maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some truth to that.
If we look at the fashions of Lunar 1, they evoke that sort of Northern Europe colder climate, and the locales of Lunar 2 are definitely not that, but it is the same world because you eventually go back to places from Lunar 1.
Yeah,
a lot more Middle Eastern, I think.
Yeah, people are like in sort of arid climate wrappings and not sort of colder wrappings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the aesthetic is similar though. Like the sort of the colorful.
Yeah, same world,
cloths.
different culture.
Yeah. Or slightly different world, same culture. It's I think that there's at least a through line there. Like both Lunar 1 and Lunar 2 have a sort of consistent aesthetic, and they also can have the sort of more humanoid people and the more beast-like people living roughly in harmony. Because Leo and Maori are two beast people that are in positions of power, but I think the game is mostly full humans, right?
Yeah.
Grandpa Gwyn is a beastman as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't think you see many of them.
I was going to say, but we have met mostly humans
Yeah.
at this point.
And they, I think they get briefly into sort of human beastman racism in a Lunar game that does not exist, that I probably shouldn't have mentioned at all. That may or may not have been on the DS, but the less we talk about that, the better. So anyway, Lucia falls from the sky, and within minutes of meeting her, we learn that she is a messenger of sort from the Blue Star. I think I accidentally, or I should say incorrectly, stated that she was another incarnation of the goddess in one of the Lunar 1 episodes, but I was mistaken. Again, I haven't played this game in 14 years or something. But she's a messenger from the Blue Star here, and she wants to meet the goddess to report to her on something that's unclear yet, but we will definitely learn later. But she's interrupted by Zophar, a malevolent entity that is in Lunar and slowly taking over, or may have already almost taken over. Maybe I'm misremembering this, but there wasn't a lot of talk of Zophar prior to that. Did he have anything back in Lunar 1? I don't, because
No.
There's no mention of Zophar at all?
I hate to reference TV tropes, but giant space flea from nowhere is Zophar in a nutshell.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, they never really go over what happens in the Blue Star and Lunar 1. They really never kind of talk about it at all.
Well, anyway, we're in Lunar 2 now, and the Church of the Goddess is far expanded. Would we call it Church of the Goddess, or just general worship of the Goddess Althena? What do they call that?
It's like a theocracy now, really.
Yeah. Because
they still call it the Church of Althena.
Yeah, they call it the Church. Yeah.
They do call it the Church? Okay, I wasn't 100% certain on that. But, there was a pretty sizable temple to Althena in Lunar 1, and she definitely was widely worshipped. It's not nearly to the extent that happens in Lunar 2. In Lunar 2, there's a church to Althena in basically every town. Instead of having a single church building with a tower, it's a giant standalone floating city with 5 towers. And the church isn't usually aggressive. There's people asking for money, or I should say the chosen, which are the people of the church, are asking for money at every opportunity. If you want to use one of the healing statues at the church, you have to pay 100 silver, which I did by accident once.
Somebody
donations, they're not
in the
asking for money.
In the early town of Dalton, somebody wearing the church's robes was seen in the night smashing the public use statue. So it's like the myths are true, and the goddess does have this like blessing, healing power, but the church has like kind of figured out a way to harness that to fill their pockets.
Yeah, that
Monetized to
monopolized
the
my
nth
mind.
degree. It's also crazy how in so many of a bunch of the cities that you don't have, let's say, an official church or sanctuary, they'll find a way to occupy someone else's home and build a shrine in there as well,
Yeah.
which I love. It's a great little detail of like, no. Expansion is happening. We're making this work. We're
Don't you love
everywhere.
the goddess? Give me your house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little
Hey,
crazy.
you're a fan. You're an old man. You're gonna die soon.
A lot of Chosen will talk about how proud they are for having given up all their worldly possessions, and some towns have sort of more or less resistance to it. Like Nota, the town that's sort of divided by a bridge to east and west sides. It's a very mercantile town, and I think a few of the merchants in Nota are like man, the Chosen are crazy from giving up their businesses. What are they doing? And it's and like the church has almost divided the town against itself, and I think it's rare that the church has a good influence on any of the towns you visit. The worst one might have been Azado, the town that has the big lighthouse in it, which somehow like everyone seems very pious there and is also very concerned not to go out at night because you learn at night the entire town burns and anyone that isn't safely at their home possibly gets their soul burned away or something. It's pretty dark what happens there.
Yeah.
And also the different people within the church have different reactions to it. Like Ronfar, who if it wasn't for Leo would probably be my favorite character, is a former priest who's become disillusioned with the church and is now a gambler and womanizer. And Ronfar's best friend Leo is one of the four heroes of the church and is very pious and righteous. But he is experiencing the dark side of it for the first time when he sees the events in Azado, and other things. So. I mean, this game is almost a Bildungsroman for Leo at times. Well, but we don't need to get into that analogy, I promise. But so it's interesting having these people within the church react to it differently, and also it's interesting to me how much different the goddess's influence is in Lunar 2 versus Lunar 1, where in Lunar 1 she was again acknowledged and popular, but not not a theocracy, not corrupt in this way. And I mean, oh boy, we could probably have an entire episode on how JRPGs don't appreciate organized religion very much.
I think this is one of the better depictions of that. I remember this came out like just after Breath of Fire 2, which also did a pretty good job.
Breath of Fire 2 does not have a happy church. No, Breath of Fire 2 is not Dragon Quest 4.
But like I think like Lunar 1 and 2, they've got opposite thesis statements. Like Lunar 1 is this utopic world where the question is like, what if somebody with power tries to compromise the ruling religious body? And Lunar 2 is, okay, this religious body has been compromised for possibly hundreds of years. What can we do about it? And it's not quite as, I mean, they're pretty light games, but the overall tone of the world is a lot less optimistic in Lunar 2.
Yeah, for most of Lunar 2, your team is, trying
a lot of oppression.
Yeah, they're trying to journey to Pentagoulia with Lucia, who the church has labeled as a destroyer or some kind of heretic. So you're being hunted or chased for a lot of the journey of the first half of the game. And but eventually you get to Pentagoulia, the different characters sort of confront their counterparts, and then it moves into a new phase. But let's talk about those characters a little bit briefly. We mentioned Leo and Ronfar. Starting with you, Scott, what are your thoughts on Ronfar in general, the gambling, fun-loving priest that you meet fairly early on?
I mean, I like Ronfar, but you looking back, he's such a creation of the '90s, or at least like the '90s or the '80s. Like he's the way he talks, the way he says his quote lines and stuff like that. He's such a reminiscence about like that late '90s, early '90s cultures. I mean, that's what working designs did best when it came to localization and stuff like that. I'm not sure about how he is in Japanese, but I mean, just he's such a great fun character that reminds you of just some of the cool things in the '90s and some of the cool things he says, I guess. But I like him.
I like him too. He's sort of a fun version of a rough around the edges, crude, drinking, womanizing, gambling character, but generally has a mostly positive message. Even though I don't always love his choice of terminology. Leona, this is your first time playing Lunar 2. What do you think of Ronfar?
I like Ron Farr. He reminds me a lot of Kyle from the first game
Mm.
in the way he's sort
yeah.
of like a drinker and a womanizer. I like him. He's a
He's
out
like
of the
he's,
mold healer like Jessica was. She was sort of like the more I'll smack you with a stick healer.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
rather
Lunar
than-
games always did the healer is not a crutch after they loses all its MP. It can still have to do other things.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's
nice.
still got a big stick.
and I like how both Jessica and Ronfar have, at least medium-sized attack power. It's a little bit
Yeah.
annoying having a party's white mage useless when they aren't able to heal. Chris, what are your thoughts on Ronfar, your sort of first permanent party member?
Kind of like what a lot of people said. Definitely language used, certain turns of phrase, all the rest of it, both positive and negative, are a little, very much of their era. But he's a fun-loving character. Again, says more than he should, especially around women, and that gets him into trouble. But it's all done, at least from what I've seen and played through so far, it's done in good jest. And thankfully, it hasn't been what is always the fear with a lot of JRPGs, just tasteless staring. And we have some of those moments here, but I don't think, unlike a lot of other stuff, it ever gets too far, too absurd. It's actually pretty tame.
I don't think it ever comes from a bad place.
No,
Like,
exactly.
No.
It's
Yeah.
very earnest. It's
Thing.
very earnest.
Yeah, he at his core, he's a good character. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a good character. He doesn't mean.
Yeah, sometimes there's weird like homophobia or sexism that shows through in these old RPGs, which you can use the "it was a different time" kind of excuse for it. But I don't think Lunar 2 is very bad in that regard.
No, not at all. But it's interesting always whenever I'm playing through old RPGs, there's always that feeling of, I wonder if this game will have some of those moments that'll make me question
Yeah,
it.
for me, it's playing old RPGs and reading old comic books. It's like, oh, this is some very uncomfortable casual sexism.
And
But-
this
but-
is dated.
Yeah, but this is Lunar 2 is again not really bad in that regard.
No, not at all.
Uh,
So yeah, I gotta say, I was impressed that he's as fun as he is.
And also, like, his fire dice spell helped me a little bit sometimes, because for a while that's the only fire move that you have.
Oh yeah, and it is a great way to just clear out whatever the powerful enemy is on the board each time.
All right, Rob. Do you have any specific thoughts on Ronfar, or should we move into Leo and how those two are, best buds going through a rough patch?
I got a few thoughts. I mean, I'm not. Elephant in the room is I wish that Ronfar didn't use the R word so much, but I don't think that's Ronfar's fault. I think that's Victor Ireland's fault. So there's that. That kind of put me off seeing that. However, Ronfar and Leo are like neck and neck for my favorite characters in this game, and part of that is Ronfar. I've got an issue with the party in this game. I pretty much like all the characters, but Ronfar is really the only one who has a reason to join. Later characters just kind of force their way into the party, some more egregiously than others, but like Ronfar, he probably gets, well, no, the other characters do get attention to their arc, but with Ronfar, joining the party is about this, it's a redemption story that doesn't quite feel as tacked on as some of the other characters do. I'm mostly
with you. I mean, I like Lemina and Jean, who we will talk about in a few minutes, but I think their arcs are a little backloaded. Like you don't really see their reason for being and reason for accompanying until until significantly after they join. While Ronfar's
kind of force their way in.
Yeah. But Ronfar, Hero and Ruby and Lucia seek him out. Then they sort of mutually help each other. They reach an understanding, and then Ronfar accompanies you and still has his arc continue. Like his seems to have more of a beginning and middle and end, while Jean and Lemina maybe only have a middle and end.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel you though.
I like that he's like the ladies' man who everybody in the party just thinks is a bit of a joke. In a game that would come out nowadays, he'd probably be, 100% super horny, and I wouldn't have time for that. And he's not so much horny or perverted as he is just flirtatious. That said, I think Lunar 2 is a much hornier game than its prequel.
I don't know if I agree with that.
No.
The
first game doesn't have like a peeping at the changing and hot spring segment.
Okay. Well, the thing, I guess there's a difference between horny and romantic then, I guess, because the thing about Lunar 1 that I think is interesting about those characters is that they're almost defined by romantic pairs.
They are, but
Luna and Alex are childhood friends who clearly are interested in each other. Jessica and Kyle are exes that had a relationship, and their relationship is brought to the forefront a couple times. And then Nash is devoted to Mia, and when Mia's introduced, it's almost as, oh, this is the girl that Nash is crazy about. And then their relationship stuff happens to a head. Like Lunar 1, its characters are partially defined by those relationships, and Lunar 2 might be hornier for Ronfar's discussion and all of the all of the gazing that Hero does to Lucia, but
it
doesn't have as much romance in it.
I mean, player-oriented anime fan service scenes,
sure,
which the first game is largely devoid of.
Are we including the bromides into this? Because
those we can. Those weren't in the original game.
Both of those games do have bromides. And I don't think that Lunar 2 has 3 powerful women in S&M gear as recurring characters.
Yes,
that's true.
It does have a bromide of Brogan, so...
Oh my.
Yeah, and it's good.
Okay, that settles it. Lunar 2 is definitely hornier than Lunar 1.
Final thought on Ronfar. This has not happened to me in this version. I hope it doesn't. I hope they've taken it out. But the all-attack dice skill that Ronfar has, if you got Snake Eyes on Sega CD, that was an instant party wipe, and you were back to the title screen.
No.
No, I think I have gotten Snake Eyes this time. I think
you just take a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I think Ronfar takes damage, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Just take damage.
So yeah, that's that.
All right, I think I want to save Leo for last. So let's talk about Jean a little bit. Jean joins sort of suddenly when you find her caravan and are captivated by her dancing, and then it happens almost too quickly. It's revealed that she has prodigious martial arts skills within 5 minutes of meeting her, and then you save the caravan accompanied by Jean from a plant monster.
Plantella, she's a babe.
Plantella.
Okay, Lunar 2 is hornier than Lunar 1. I agree. Lunar 1's more romantic, and Lunar 2 is hornier. I accept this now. But it almost happens very quickly. Like, within 15 minutes of meeting Jean, you defeat a plant monster with her. She reveals that she was a kidnapped child of a martial arts cult, and now wants to seek out a martial arts master named Master Lun to try and suss out that cult and make sure that nothing happens to other children like what happened to her, which is really fast for learning backstory, faster than Ronfar even because like you learn about Ronfar's past with Leo and Maori again within 20 minutes of meeting him, but it seems to happen almost even more suddenly with Jean. But like, what are your thoughts on Jean in general? And this is, again, we're only talking about the first half of the game because Jean goes from me liking her to her being maybe my favorite character by the second half, but she's a little less cool in the first half of Lunar 2. Chris, what are your early impressions of Jean?
Well, kind of tagging on what Rob was just going into about Ronfar and having far more kind of a justified entrance into the party. I really felt the whole Jean segment like, okay, so this is clearly going to be a character who's going to join, and then it just happens. She's like, I'm gonna go with you guys. It's like, all right. I mean, okay, cool. I guess we're there now. Extra person in the party. That's great. I think she's a great character in terms of her writing is fun. She has no problem, telling Ronfar that he's being an idiot, which I just absolutely love. And she also, I do love all the lines, especially after the costume changing sequence of peeking, how she constantly teases Hero about being into girls and making him uncomfortable. And I do enjoy all the dialogue of him saying, please stop making me embarrassed. And her going, no, this is just fun. Like, I'm gonna keep making you squirm. Because good God, it's fun. She's a joyous, I don't know, she's a good spark plug energy wise for the group, especially before Lemona joins, but it really and it's not unique to Lunar 2, but it was a little jarring to me that she was just suddenly there. I honestly thought there was going to be one more activity or one more quick sojourn with Jean somewhere before she was going to suddenly just be like, all right, now I'm going to go with you guys. It was very much, I can't do this. My past is very dark and mysterious. And you know what? I should confront that past. It's like, okay, we got there in legitimately a 5-second window.
Yeah,
But hey,
I'm less surprised by her joining quickly and more surprised by discovering her secret past within 5 minutes of meeting her.
of that, yeah.
I thought that feels like something that would have happened later, but no, like both for Ronfar and Jean, we learn about their dark, tortured secrets within a few minutes of meeting them.
Yeah, just a flash of it.
Leona, you're the other Lunar 2 newbie along with Chris. What are your thoughts on Jean?
I like Jean. I think she's fun. The way you meet her, it didn't bother me, if I'm honest. I didn't think it was that fast. I felt like, it's like, I did feel like you're going about gathering party members, but I like a quick pace in my RPGs. So
True.
I wasn't mind, like, that's how she would have to leave the caravan. It would have to be a reason for her to go. So knowing that she has to meet this martial arts master that's totally not evil, I was okay with how fast her backstory was kind of told, and it comes up again like a few times later through the game.
Mhm.
So it's not revealed all at once, but it kind of is. It reminds me a lot of it's that old anime sort of like trope where the kidnapped children raised by an evil martial arts master. It reminds me of a lot of a character from Trails in the Sky, but I won't go too into it for spoilers.
It reminds me of the old manga and anime Angel Heart for
Right, I had that one.
which I think is also made into like a Jackie Chan movie that's not really the same as the
Yeah.
comic, but
Yeah,
whatever.
it comes up a lot.
It does.
You see it and you're like, oh, okay, we're doing this story this time.
All right, and but again, I'm sticking to the first half of Lunar 2. Rob, what are your thoughts on Jean in general?
I like Jean. I didn't remember her revealing the backstory right away in the Sega CD version. I don't know if that's just my memory being faulty or what. I like that we've got a woman of color in the party, and we kind of get into some of the politics of Lunar's world in this time period where her gypsy troupe are facing persecution for their lifestyle. So it's not really touched upon that much. I mean, it's really just touched upon rather than going into detail. But they are seen as like second-class citizens who are good for entertaining and then moving from town to town, but not.
I think the church's problem is that they're basically godless and they
Sinful entertainment.
Yeah.
Drinking and dancing and joy.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would totally watch a remake of Footloose set in the world of Lunar 2.
I did think of Footloose when all the dancing and singing's banned. It's like, oh, where's Kevin Bacon?
Yeah, exactly.
I
Just
am.
needs a few green tattoos. That's
Kevin
all.
Bacon would basically be playing Ron Farr, but in Jean's role, and I'm 100% into that.
Wow.
Is Kevin Bacon wearing the gypsy uniform?
Oh,
You
this is
know?
getting
Gotta
weird.
watch it.
All right, well, maybe not her gypsy uniform, but we know that those tents have a lot of clothes because we got treated to a Lucia fashion show at one point. So maybe he's wearing Lucia's shorts?
Yeah.
Or the clown outfit.
Mm-hmm. All right. We got to make that happen, Kevin Bacon.
You're calling
find
Kevin
you.
Bacon.
We'll find him. Chris, you're an actor. All actors know each other, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I got
Was
you.
it 6
talk
degrees
at
of
the
Kevin
meeting.
Bacon? Is that like literally it?
I mean,
I'll have to look at the
Yeah,
Lunar 2
it
voice
is
actor
literally
sheet
like
and see
it.
if we can make 6 degrees of Lunar 2 to Kevin Bacon happen.
taking it
done it.
awkwardly
Oh,
get through.
this sounds like me exploring IMDb for an hour and then getting frustrated.
And then yelling at your screen.
So,
Nothing about it.
Scott, again, trying to keep to the first half of Lunar 2 because Jean does have a conclusion to her arc in the second half of the game. What are your thoughts on her in general?
I like that you learn about her so fast. I mean, I'm with Leona on this. I like when characters don't have to hide stuff or that they're not afraid to hide stuff. It kind of goes with the whole gypsy thing. She's upfront about herself. She's like, "This is who I am. If you can't accept that, that's fine. But that's who I am, and I like that. I also like the fact that she's like one of the only JRPG characters that uses like fans as weapons. Instead of like hitting people with them, she like throws them, chucks them at people. It's actually kind of cool battle.
Yeah, well, this is about 15 years before Persona 4.
Yeah.
And
A lot of Persona Lunar comparisons.
Yeah,
there's
including the actual Persona enemies, the masks.
there's fans in a couple Dragon Quest games, but I don't know if any of them are before Lunar 2. But yeah, fans are a relatively uncommon JRPG weapon. So
They're a fabulous weapon.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're very fabulous.
Very
And it's nice
fabulous.
that she has global range on all of them while being a pretty good attacking character. That's
Yeah.
because like space and movement is a part of both Lunar games, and Lunar 2 basically retains the same combat from Lunar 1. We discussed Lunar combat in pretty good detail in the first Lunar 1 episode, I think. There's movement and attack number and range stats that your melee characters need to be in range to attack. A lot of it spells and skills have different ranges and different zones of effect that you need to take care of, but I don't think the combat ever really got in the way for me personally. The characters in general have more skills in Lunar 2 than in Lunar 1, so there's more variety to combat. But I mostly think it's
a lot more
fun.
range choices as well for each character. Some characters in Lunar 1 were kind of, if they were out of range, they were kind of stuck. But everyone kind of has like a ranged ability of some form or another.
And if they don't, you have the whole crest system in Lunar 2, which allows you to make new spells and stuff for people, which is actually really useful for a lot of characters. And kind of overpowered for a lot of part of the games. But I like it. It's fun.
Yeah, it at least makes earth and lightning and non-elemental magic available to any character, and basically any character can learn at least some spells, as opposed to Lunar 1 when everyone's basically set in their ways. There's going to be no Kyle situations where you get only 4 skills and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's also nice having your skills and spells transform a little bit. I'm someone who likes transforming things, so I guess it's playing to my tastes a little bit. So I guess we've gone through Ronfar and Jean.
The right way.
And now, but shortly after Jean joins, I think maybe my least favorite part of the game so far, with Lemina and the Ghost Manor.
Yep, most egregious character join.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't mind her joining. I just think that dungeon sucks and the boss is a pain in the ass.
So much better in the Sega CD version.
Oh, really? Okay. Maybe that's
Is it?
That could be working designs messing with integers again, because that
No, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Okay.
How so?
What is it like in the Sega CD version?
In the Sega CD version, it's like the Resident Evil mansion, and like before you go into different rooms, like you read like a hint on how you're going to tackle a monster in a specific room. So like it hints to like put Susie Death to sleep, and then like all of the monsters that you fight, like they initially appear as ghosts, but then when you hit their weak point, they're revealed to be robots, and then you can just take them out. And then
that's way cooler. That's
you fight that.
That's so much more fun.
Yeah, so it looks really good. It looks like a big spooky house, and it's not those hallways, and it's just like a handful of set encounters. And then you fight that big silly robot at the end who's pretty much the same, but it plays the goofy music from the intro instead of the boss theme, and I like that more.
It plays with the absurdity of the whole dungeon rather than actually trying to make it. Yeah, that's way more flavorful.
Yeah, that's much more interesting, because I thought that the house dungeon was just annoying, and the boss
weird
at
tunnels. It's not good.
And the boss at the end, I don't know. I had to exhaust my entire supply of SP to beat it, and it took me, I think, 2 or 3 tries. I got unlucky, and it would kill Ronfar in one turn, and then that was just a cycle of despair. But I don't think any challenge in the game has been at that level yet. Like it was the most frustrating and challenging part of the game, and everything after it has been much easier. Am I just a moron, or did you guys struggle with that a little bit too?
I had the same thing, especially with that boss. In that I got there, was out of MP with all my characters, and had to burn through way too many consumables just to get through it. Wasn't exactly, brutally difficult. It was a little bit more of just a battle of attrition kind of situation, and that was frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's always been like the Lunar's difficulty is where MP management has always been like, unlike other games,
front and center.
You're always limited. Yeah, you're always limited in what you can carry. Well, in the first one especially, but in the second one still, you can only carry so much of certain items, and it's like you really need to like buckle down on your MP management. Otherwise, you get to the boss and it's like, oh. you're screwed. There's no tents. There's nothing to refill your MP most of the time.
Yeah, the
I've
first
come up with a little bit of a technique to manage that really came in handy in the Ghost House. Was that like I ran through it once and got all the chests. Boy, the chests in this game are not very good. But I ran through and I got the chests, and then like I warped back to town, healed, and then like kind of made a beeline for the boss, and it
Smart.
helped me kind of mitigate my resources.
Yeah, and have full MP and then try to blast through it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I should have picked up on this, but the boss is much more weak to magic than physical attacks. So the first two times I fought it, I wasted all of my MP using post sword instead of boomerang. When boomerang costs half as much and deals more damage.
Deals more
You
damage.
never realize boomerang does win magic until actually to that fight. I think.
I had I think I knew that Boomerang was magic. I just had it in my head. Oh, Alex is an attacking character.
Yeah.
Boomerang's useless compared to Post Sword. But I started experimenting around, and maybe the third time I fought it, and like, oh no, this is much better, and then I won.
Freudian slip. Does Hero really not have that much of a personality? You said Alex.
Oh, I said Alex. God, I probably have already made that mistake in this episode because
okay.
I mean, Hero reminds me of Justin from Grandia, which is again from the same developer. Because
very much so.
Yeah,
Yes,
the defining part of his personality is how much he loves adventure. But I mean, as you're playing through the game, I mean, really, what's to Hero other than adventure and being devoted to Lucia? I don't know. There's a lot there.
I'm just so excited about adventures.
And just, like as a, light-skinned person with brown hair, all of us look basically the same, right?
Pretty much.
I've read that somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, okay. After that frustrating, annoying dungeon, Lemon joins, or at least... I'm not sure if she joins you or you join her, because you basically agreed to join her magic guild.
She won't leave.
She just will not leave you.
And she has a magic carpet that is, questionable magic levels that you use as an exit to the manor that, allows for a, comic falling from the sky moment, a little bit of a, Wile E. Coyote briefly, hovering in midair before dropping kind of scene.
Now, you had a very interesting interpretation of Lemina that you briefly mentioned in our last episode, of who she could be, the possible, following the lineage of.
Oh yeah, because I think she has like Mia's moveset and Nash's personality to a degree.
Yeah.
And
certainly like Nash's confidence and like skills that can't really back it up. I mean, she's not stuck under like a basket with a banana, but she does mess up that magic carpet pretty quickly.
Also, I like in this version of events where she's a descendant of Nash and Mia, that means that Nash took Mia's last name, which I think is fitting for him.
Correct.
But yeah, I think that's, if not 100% certain, at least that's a reasonable assumption. It's probable that she's a descendant of Mia and Nash. I'm just completely messing up everyone's name today.
It's that day. Don't worry.
Yeah, but I think Lemon gets like at first she's almost annoying. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna keep you around because I really like having multi-hitting fire and ice spells. But after you get to Vayne and you learn a little bit more about her motivations, I like her much more. Because like Vayne has fallen from the sky and has been sort of crumbling for 1,000 years, and she's determined to bring the Magic Guild back up to prominence and have Vayne flying again, which is, a cool reference to the world state at the end of Lunar 1, and also, maybe not a shock, but a bit of a, eye-opening moment. Like, Vayne has still been crashed to the ground for 1,000 years. So, following Lunar 1, it's like, oh, damn, okay. And now I feel I actually have a little bit of empathy for Lemon now, when before it's like, what are you doing here, Blondie?
Yeah, it's not easy to fix what's happened before, and she's trying very hard.
And also, she seems to have a money-raising competition going on with one of Rammus's descendants, and Rammus has a bit of a crush on her, and I am very into both of those ideas.
She's almost got a bit of a thing for him as well.
I think she has some respect for him, but is not enamored with him the way that he's enamored with her.
She's kind of flirting back, though. She's like, well, you gonna get on my level. And then we'll see.
I think she's
Yeah, I was
just in it for
gonna
the
say.
money, though, because if she realizes, well, he's got a lot of money, if I flirt a little bit,
I don't know. I think she would come right out and say that, though.
I
True,
think she just
true.
enjoys
Yeah.
the fact that there's a little competition in her life.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is a clear romantic pairing that we have on. I'm just
Oh, no.
I'm just happy for Ramus that he's had descendants and at least was successful at one point in running his store. But
That he accomplished a thing in his existence.
yeah, but it is cool that Lemina gets what's the word I'm trying to think, a likable backstory, because she doesn't have the greatest first impression. But I do appreciate that she doesn't tell her entire backstory in the first 15 minutes like Jean and Ronfar do. But okay, we're done talking about Lemon. Let's talk about the real star of this game, Leo, the White Knight.
Dun, 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 dun.
I love that he's apparently everyone's favorite.
He is technically maybe the second or third character you meet in the game, since you see him riding on his big shiny dragon ship right after Alex and Hero and Ruby. Damn it, happened again. After Hero and Ruby escape the tower, and he starts out as being a very Dudley Do Right kind of righteous guy who's trying his
Pressure
best.
cop.
He's very he's very devoted. He's the Inspector Zenigata to Hero's Lupin the Third, maybe.
He really enjoys saying the name of his ship a lot,
Yes.
which I love. I always love.
Full
people
name,
that-
Dragon Ship Destiny.
Yeah,
All three
the
words.
Dragon Ship Destiny, and I imagine him half yelling it every time he says it.
But yeah, he's always pursuing the party. He's an old friend of Ronfar's. He seems like a good guy who's sort of working for bad people, and that becomes
gullible.
yeah, and that becomes extremely clear to everyone when he you deal with the fires going on in Azado, and then he helps you through what's going on in Pentaguglia, and then has his real character moment when he imprisons Hero, but then rescues him wearing a mask and is now identifies as Hero of Justice Mystere.
It's such a good
Hold on.
moment.
I'm pretty sure you're confusing
I think that's a
Leo
different
with
character,
Mystere.
right?
Oh, yeah,
Mystere
no,
is a
you're
different
right.
character than Leo.
Yeah,
Clearly.
it's weird. They have similar hair, but I guess they are separate. I mean, well, maybe in the second half of the game it'll be clear
Totally different.
that Leo and Mystere are separated identical twins, or maybe separated fraternal twins. I don't. Maybe I'll have to double check their hair. And it is curious that both Mystere and Leo wield Dine's sword and have identical equipment and stats, except for the mask that Mystere wears.
Whoa,
But
It's a big world. We've all got doppelgangers.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
that's true.
I wonder what would happen if Leo and Mystere got were to meet, because I mean their ideals are similar.
As we speak.
I think they'd be friends. They'd be friends.
Did they get along? Okay.
Yeah, they get along.
Oh, Leo would throw him in the dungeon.
But they both
No,
believe
that's
in
true, but
they
then
both
they-
believe
but
in
then he-
justice, though.
Yeah, they justice. It's all about justice.
And they both have identical sword techniques, so at least they could be training buddies at least.
That is true.
So
Who gets to ride in
I
this destiny, though?
love Leo and Mystere, whether they're the same character or not, and I also enjoy that when you in the events of Pentaguglia, when you rescue Ronfar, Jean, and Lemina, they both immediately subscribe to the Mystere things, like, oh, so you're Mystere now? Okay, great, let's get out of here.
Yeah, you're totally Leo, but okay, you want to do this? Okay.
I love the immediate acceptance of that. But I've been talking far too much already on this podcast. Leona, what are your thoughts on the similarly named to you, Leo?
Yeah, like it's a match made in heaven, right? I love Leo. Leo's probably my favorite character so far. He's got this really when you first meet him, you think he's this probably hard ass person, general person, but he's actually quite nice. He's quite sweet, but also gullible, because like when you first meet Lucia and you come down from the Blue Spire, you run into Leo, and he's also like, "Oh, who's this girl?" And Hero's like, "Oh, I just happened to run into her at the top of the tower. Nothing destroyery here." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll go check then." And he's like, "Okay, I'll just walk away now." It also comes up later, like also he just believes Ronfar's lies as well, just a constant repeating of lies that he just trusts 100%.
And doesn't when he rushes back into the tower while you're exiting Disney, he says, "Come on, we must fight Lucia the Destroyer,"
Yeah.
because he didn't pick up that Lucia's what Lucia's name was when he briefly met you.
Yep.
Oh man, yeah, he's gullible, but he's also very capable. Like it's communicated from the beginning. He's strong. He's one of the strongest fighters in the world,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he's also kind of this goof. And
Yeah.
I love Leo. I find him really fun. Rob, what are your thoughts on Leo?
Leo's a cop. He's also like a stooge, but he doesn't mean it. I don't know. He needs to like he would benefit from like unlearning his behavior that justice does not like he believes that justice means upholding orders and the status quo, and he needs to like unlearn that. Anarchist corner here. And fortunately he can be brought around because he does have this goodness in him. He believes that he's doing the right thing, and he has to have this big he has to be confronted with the fact that the interests that he is serving are not those truly on the side of like justice and doing well. But he's extremely charming. He's Ronfar's best friend, and him and Ronfar have to like deal with this, like doing the right thing is going to cause a rift in their friendship. And he's great, isn't he? He's really, really great.
Basically, I totally agree. Scott, let's continue the Leo love train.
Yeah, I like Leo. I like Leo a lot. I mean, he has one of the better arcs in the game toward the end of the game. But early on, you feel like he's like, he's a jerk. Get away from me. Or you're playing like it's like a Saturday morning cartoon villain where he's like, oh, you're just gonna escape from him. Oh, we're gonna silently walk away, and then eventually you come around, you really like him, and then you realize he's not so uptight as he is. He's a little uptight, still uptight toward the end of the game, but he's just he's kind of a fun character. Like
His
I said, I
constant
like all the
chasing of
characters,
you
though.
really drives the plot forward
Yes.
in an effective manner.
And he's actually, despite losing you a bunch of times, he's actually pretty good at tracking you for most of the time. He knows almost
Again,
exactly
he's
where you are.
capable and he's good at his job, and you see him a lot in this game. He gets a lot of screen time as sort of a rival and a villain early on, but you see the change happen in him, maybe culminating in his in the appearance of Mystere, who we're still not 100% sure if Mystere is Leo or not, I guess. But I really like his arc and feel that Leo / Mystere are a great character. Chris, are you also into Leo as the rest of us seem to be?
Yeah, I mean, someone just said it right now. Absolutely, he is the motivating force of why the hell you're doing anything and moving along with the story, which I do appreciate because there's a good sense of urgency to the game because of his constant nipping at your heels. But yeah, I mean, he starts off very one note, but clearly with the intent of slowly revealing there's more to him, and I do appreciate what they do with the character. I do like him. He's funny. There's a lot of great little moments of either stupidity or just bullheaded pride getting in the way and kind of ruining what he's trying to accomplish. I did really like with the setup of the game how you have, and I don't mean to mention another character we haven't gotten to yet, but how he is so clearly stronger than you, Leo, that is. And then when you have the moment outside of the Mystic Ruins, when he gets absolutely devastated, it's a great foreshadowing of like, oh, we have this other thing in this world that is way stronger than this guy that is clearly superpowered to us at this point.
Yeah, let's talk about him right now, because when you go to the Mystic Ruins after Leo foils your escape attempt to get to Pentagoulia, you meet Galleon at the top of that tower. Galleon, the final boss of Lunar 1, who has returned for unclear reasons. It's clear that Zophar has abetted this return, but it's not 100% clear what he's doing, but when you go to Pentagoulia, it's revealed that Galleon is the current Dragon Master, which seems crazy because that comes as a surprise to Hero et al. And shouldn't the entire world know who the Dragon Master is? And shouldn't the entire world be concerned that it's the same person that almost ended the world 1,000 years ago? That all seems a little bonkers to me. But
I don't think Galleon likes being called the Dragon
No,
Master.
he doesn't.
yeah, but he says that at the near the end of the Pentagoulia segment.
Yeah.
But it's weird to me that Leo seemed clear. Oh yeah, Galleon. Nice to see you again. But the rest of the world doesn't seem to know about Galleon. Like it was a surprise for Hero to
Well,
see Galleon, right?
Well, you have to
Galleon
remember
as
that
a
no one
character is-
remembers really what's happened 1,000 years ago, because even Gwyn at the beginning of the game, for being as knowledgeable as he is, when certain things are referenced, he's still like, I think I read about that once. So
Yeah.
to an extent, there is that knowledge that
yeah, so-
all
so-
of that has
so
been
Hero-
lost in the world.
Yeah, so Hero has clear knowledge of it because he has read the Alex the Dragon Master story over and
Yes.
over, probably. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
does Lemona reacts as well, doesn't she? Because he's
Yes.
the one who knocked Vayne out of the
Destroyed Vayne.
sky.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So she would be keenly aware of it too, but maybe the rest of the world at large isn't as aware as Hero or Lemona.
Well, what was
Okay.
because
But also, like, how's he
what's
gonna
the
come back?
name for Galleon as the bad guy? His term was the What Lord in the first game.
The Magic Emperor.
Oh,
That's what it was, Magic Emperor.
He's
So
not,
I do
not just
wonder
the
if
Magic Emperor Quark, the Galleon.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. The Magic Emperor. But I that's why I'm just curious if, in the sake of some of the stories, when people are referencing the story of Alex the Dragon Master, is it
Yeah,
just
sure.
in those writings the Magic Emperor versus the actual name of Galleon? Because Galleon was one of the was supposed to be a good guy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's possible
That's
that
one of
that
those things
history-
of
that
what is the
history-
lore of your universe versus.
It's possible that history remembered Galleon as one of the four heroes and the Magic Emperor as the opponent
Exactly.
of Alex.
I don't know.
I guess, but still, I was a little surprised that it was taken in stride that Galleon was a current good guy and servant of the goddess. But then that's again the first few minutes of you visiting Pentagoulia, and I'm also not 100% sure of his motivations. Like, why did he save Hero from Leo? Did he want Lucia to
think he-
go to Pentagoulia?
Yeah, he said he was guiding them to Pentagoulia.
All right.
I don't dig Galleon in this game at all. It feels cheap. And we'll get into that later as he makes more of an appearance. I think Leona will probably agree with me that I'm delighted that like his awful overblown dialogue is back.
Yes.
Like when you first see him, he says
his
like
script is
It's
very
delightfully
silly in both
nasal, and I don't
the,
give a
the world
I
will
don't
be
know.
mine on a delicious half shell. I mean, what is he, Shredder? I mean,
John Truitt.
There was
is
a blue
the-
planet named Lunar.
John Truitt is the voice of Galleon. He is.
Yeah.
He does it. He plays it up and
He nails
plays
it.
the hammy.
If he
over
went
the
a
top thing.
little
Great.
more nasal, he could be a good Skeletor.
Exactly. Beautiful.
At the very start of the game, that's his voice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was immediately like on edge. I was like, no, he can't be back. All out of, like, fear of just like, oh no, more cheesy lines.
Well, Galleon does come back, but one other one other character that does come back from Lunar, and I think that his inclusion is maybe a little bit more justifiable, is Null, who was, Alex's baby dragon friend who becomes the new white dragon at the end of Lunar 1. He's now the current white dragon. He's taking care of orphans outside of Maribia. He's kind of a Peter Pan that has a better graduation program in place.
very sorry.
You're
go
not
ahead.
just killed.
Yeah, he doesn't hold on to children forever. He lets them grow up and has them, come back to help out once in a while. Null's a decent operation going for him. But during the events around Maribia, the party meets Null. They see him taking care of all these orphans, and then they foil a plot by the Shadow Dragon cult. Am I getting that right? Or
That's
is it just-
right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the Shadow Dragon cult. For a second, maybe I was conflating it with Fire Emblem briefly, but the.
The Foot Clan.
Yeah, they foil that plan. You get some character moments out of Jean. She doesn't want any more children to be like her, and it comes out very very quickly. I mean, I'm shocked that I ever didn't think this, but Lun is secretly the leader of the Shadow Dragon cult.
Did you not pick up on that?
No, I think when I first played it, I didn't think about it. But
So obvious.
again, it was 14 or 15 years ago. I'm not sure about it, but like I was just thinking, how is this unclear to anybody? It should be very obvious. But we'll get to Pentagoulia a little more in a few minutes. But first, Null. I sort of liked seeing Null again. Are we agreeing on this, or do we sort
Yeah.
of... Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
very much.
It creates a wonderful, to me, it goes back to lore and that idea of there is a really cool through line from first game to second game, which sometimes in sequels it's a little bit more in the background, and I actually appreciate that because it makes it feel like there's enough touchstones from that previous world that it's not just I don't know, lip
Totally.
service.
Yeah. I love two things about when you meet Null. One, that you meet Null again. Two, that you meet him what is on like an overgrown, like it's been there for 1,000 years. It's the grindery. You're actually Tavern's
Yeah.
Peak is the grindery. It's just been sitting there for 1,000 years, and people are like,
Yeah.
maybe we should take this down. It shot the thing out of the sky. Maybe we should remove it. No one. For 1,000 years, everyone's like, screw it. We'll leave it there.
Too big. Does
Yeah,
that mean there's dragon bones in there?
possible.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. It's kind of morbid when you think that now the dragon is just sitting on top of all these dead dragons.
Including his parent or his predecessor in there?
That was mentioned, and then I never got that in the first game that Quark was Niall's dad or mom, whatever.
I mean, Null did grow up right next to Quark.
Yeah, abandonment, I guess.
Maybe dragons produce asexually? Well, what's the fun in that, though?
There's also another nice little line from Niall. I don't know how much. I've never played this. I don't know if they go into it later in the game, but when Niall's talking to Ruby about not getting too attached, I thought that was a nice little emotional moment that maybe Niall got too attached to Alex and Luna and everyone, and they all died. He's left.
I think they do address that a little bit. Null's lonely, and he takes care of all of these orphans because he misses Alex and Luna, and maybe they mention it more in the second half, because I specifically remember that.
There's a little bit more going on between why Null says that, and let's just say that Null might have a little bit of a crush going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ruby might be the first person that he's
crush on Hero. So
yeah, Ruby likes Hero, and Null might like Ruby, but Ruby might also be the first dragon he's seen in 1,000 years.
I don't know.
It's unclear.
The blue and the black. He must have met the blue and the black dragon a bunch of times. Maybe
they hung out at least once.
We don't know. I mean, did they all die in the grindery? There might be baby blue and black dragons out there that we haven't met. It's a lot can happen in 1,000 years.
True.
And I'm not an expert on the lifespan and species behavior of lunar dragons, but
yeah, very specifically lunar dragons.
Exactly. But it is cool to see Null again, and but his arc is, I think, a little sad because he takes care of these orphans and tries to make them into good adults when he clearly misses Alex and Luna. It's a little sweet.
Yeah, it's really sad, but I like it. It's a nice
making
arc.
it work.
But speaking of dragons, the second half of the game begins with each of the 4 dragons basically seeking out the 4 auras of the 4 dragons so that they the party can use the power of the dragons to crack the goddess tower that Zophar is almost holding hostage, or the goddess power that's being held hostage. Lucia wants to access that power. It's unclear exactly what she can do with it because, again, it's implied that using the power of humans might not be something that the humans like when Lucia's being confronted by the fake goddess in Pentagoulia. And also it sort of neatly works out that each one of the 4 main characters other than Lucia corresponds to one of the 4 heroes.
Yeah, that was
in the game.
Yeah.
Because Leo's been chasing Hero for the entire game. Ronfar's ex-girlfriend Maori is the Red Priestess. The Black Mage Borgin kidnaps Lemina's mother and is ruling from a place called Neovane and is casting the original Vane aside, which is defining Lemina's character. And the Blue Dragon Master, the Blue Dragon hero is Jean's former master / oppressor and also Master Lun of Maribia. So each one of them neatly corresponds to one of the 4 heroes, and at least Ronfar, Jean, and Lemina will have not a total resolution, but some resolution to their personal stories when you confront them one by one in Disc 2, which
quite
is
literal confrontation of their past.
It's I think they're great. I remember thinking that those 3 confrontations were really cool parts of Lunar 2, but again, it's been a long time.
Cool.
I really like Pentagoulia as a whole. I like the whole trip there.
Pentagoulia is a turning point because you meet this false goddess. You realize that Althena is not the power of Althena is still in Lunar 2, but it's being misappropriated, and that Zophar has basically turned the Church of Athena into a cult to Zophar, and it sets plot stakes. It sets character motivations. Pentagoulia is a really cool part of the game and really sets up the second half of the game in a meaningful way.
That's the organ.
Yeah.
But
we didn't really have each of the characters corresponding to the 4 heroes in Lunar 1.
No.
And so I think having them as like another side of the coin and the 4 heroes being antagonists this time around, I think was a really, really smart move.
Yeah, it makes them feel like more fully fledged characters in this game. Because in Lunar 1, the 4 heroes are basically people of the past. They're venerated, and at the end of the game, going back to Lunar 1, near the beginning of Lunar 1, when you get to Meribia, there's 4 children pretending to be the 4 heroes, and then at the end of the game, those same 4 children are pretending to be, or maybe it's 5 children because it's the Dragon Master. They are pretending to be the characters in your party, I'm Kyle, the bandit hero kind of thing at the end of Meribia. So I think maybe it's traditional in this Lunar world to have a group of heroes as the world's caretakers or guardians. But like you said, Rob, now the heroes are sort of tools of the evil status quo instead of being real bastions of justice like the main characters of Lunar 1. And it's an interesting turn. And I kind of maybe it's because I like multicolored teams of superheroes. But it's nice having the pins lined up to be knocked down in the second half of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I really dig it, and I'm excited to go and play more of it. So again, we're not running too long, but I don't want this podcast to turn into a 2-hour marathon. Starting with you, Leona, how excited are you, or how interested are you in playing through the second half of Lunar 2, and maybe tell us one hope or expectation that you have for the second half?
I'm really looking forward to it. As after Pentagoulia, as you said, the stakes are now made clear. I'm interested in knowing some finer plot points, like who this fake goddess is and stuff like that. Expectation-wise, or what I'd like to happen, apart from just more Leo, that'd be cool.
Love it.
All right, Chris, same to you as our other Lunar 2 newbie.
I'm very excited for the rest of this game. Like I said before, this is one of those series, and specifically one of those games that I've wanted to check off for forever. But beyond that, it's just everyone we've met so far, everyone we follow, the writing, the world itself. I find it so charming. I really do. That's part of why I love moments like having Null here and other characters or references from the first game, is that I find it such a wonderful little world to keep exploring. So I'm excited to see what happens next.
All right, Rob. I don't know. I'm not exactly certain how long it's been since you played Lunar 2, but
23 years. Literally, that's so scary.
Oh, yikes! Yeah.
Wow.
Again, for me, I think it's 14, and for you, 23. That's an integer larger than 14. So, is it meeting, exceeding, failing expectations and memories, or impressions after playing through half?
I seem to remember it being a lot more dramatic, but I think that was probably the fact that I was 10. I am enjoying it a lot. I'm enjoying it a lot more than Silver Star Harmony. I won't talk about that anymore. I've had my say. Lunar 1 had such a profound influence on me when it came out, so it feels strange that I never actually beat this game. So I'm looking forward to having round 2 against Borgen and seeing how the rest of the plot shakes out, and finally actually firsthand seeing this epilogue that everybody's raving about. So I'm really keyed up to get through this one.
Right on. And Scott, maybe this is a less complicated answer than the rest of the questions from the past minute or so. Is Lunar 2 still one of the top 2 games of all time?
Yes.
Got it. All right.
I'm excited to hear what you guys. Well, I'm excited to by Chris and Leona, and I want to know what they think afterward. And I'm not looking forward to going through Neovan again. Just giving you guys a heads up.
Oh, boy.
Oh, really? Okay, good to know.
I
I appreciate that, actually.
I am looking forward to
It's never. It's this,
to Gene versus Lun again, because I love a good tournament arc. Let's just say.
yeah.
Hmm.
I know probably why Robert didn't beat the game because Borgin, that boss fight is
Oh my
not fun.
God.
It is not fun, especially. Are you playing the PS1 version or are you playing?
I'm playing the PS1 version this
Okay.
time.
The PS1 version's much easier than
Okay.
the other
Doesn't
versions.
have the 5 targets all casting
No,
spells on you this
he
time.
is much easier. He's still hard, but
Mhm.
that whole area of the game is very. Once you get past that, the game gets easier. But
Hmm. Okay. Well, that's a relief.
And again, I don't want to spoil too much for Chris and Leona, but again, the Lunar 2 has a lengthy epilogue after you play the main game that is almost like a third act. If everything through Pentaglia is Act 1 and Pentaglia through Zophar is Act 2, there's more game to play. This is Lunar 2 is about a 30-hour game, while Lunar 1 is about a 20-hour game. And I think my clock was around 12 or 13 hours when I saved in the middle of the White Dragon Cave for this podcast. But I'll probably play that later tonight because because we got to have another podcast next week, don't we?
Oh yeah, we do.
yes,
And I guess that means we've discussed Lunar 2 enough for now, but there's more to come later. Next week we are going to have a second episode all about Lunar 2. We will talk about the end game, we will talk about the epilogue, and we will have abridged thoughts on all of those characters. But following that, in the month of August, we have 5 episodes lined up. They haven't all recorded yet, but they're all in the planning stages. We're gonna have one episode about worlds and favorite places in RPGs. One episode all about Final Fantasy VII, not the game, but more like the future of Final Fantasy VII. And then 2 episodes about Shadow Hearts. That's not Shadow Hearts Covenant. We did 2 episodes on that one about a year and a half ago. We have a new team, a new panel playing through the original Shadow Hearts over 2 episodes. And I cannot wait to hear that discussion because I really liked Shadow Hearts 2 when I played it for the first time last year, and Shadow Hearts 1 I'm a little less excited about, but definitely curious about. But Shadow Hearts is going to bookend a very special episode because episode 150 of RPG Fans Retro Encounter will take place this August. So, and I think we're going to make episode 150 a all reader mail episode. So maybe you heard a primer at the beginning of this episode, but please send us emails using retro@rpgfan.com, whether it's an open-ended question or discussion topic, or a suggestion for a game for a future episode, or just any kind of directed question. If you send us an email and it doesn't have any, outwardly hateful content in it, then we will air it on that episode. So let's get into housekeeping. RPG Fan has a lot more than just Retro Encounter. There are forums. There is the at RPG Fancom Twitter. There is a Facebook page. There is a Discord server. There is an Instagram page. There's another podcast called Retro Encounter, and there's Twitch streaming going on basically every day of the week. Scott, is it at least 5 or 6 days of
every day.
Every day. All right, Twitch streams
We
every
got-
day.
There's a bunch of us streaming. I do a lot of it every day.
Streaming every day. If I were to read the current streaming menu, it would probably be outdated by the time this episode comes out. So please go to RPG Fan's front page to see what the streaming schedule is for that week, or visit RPG Fan's Twitch page and see what's going on. Plus, let's see what else we have. Oh yeah, listeners, please review us on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you're getting this podcast, because any constructive criticism is helpful to us. And you can also send an email to retro@rpgfan.com, like I mentioned before. We will read all feedback and respond to most of it. And I think that's about does it for the site. Now let's go for the individual side. Starting with you, Rob, how can listeners reach you?
The best place to find me is on Twitter @MisAnthroBob. Hit me
All
up.
right. And Leona, your turn.
Best place to find me is on our Discord server. I run the Discord server. Star Mongoose is my username. I'm also on Twitter under the same name. We also have a podcast, sort of a channel to discuss podcasts. So you can
that's
also
right,
go
yeah.
there and talk about the podcast there.
All right, and Chris, how can listeners find you?
At Chris Gebauer on Twitter. Yeah, that's usually the easiest way to find me.
Okay, Scott, your turn. How can listeners reach out to you?
I do not have a Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, but you can find me on the RPG Fan Twitch stream almost every day, and you can find me on Discord too. You can talk to me whenever.
Right on. Now, Me, I probably have all of these things. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at The Real Monsoon. I also have a second Twitter at Evoker for Dogs when I get extra weird. And I'm on Discord as Monsoon Mike, I think. Yeah, maybe Monsoon _ Mike. I don't know. If it says Monsoon or Mike in the Discord, it's probably me. And I'm still on the forums as Monsoon, but I barely visit the forums anymore. There's just too much social media for me to engage with. Some of it has to fall by the wayside, and it's usually the forums. So, I cannot wait to talk to all four of you again next week about Lunar 2, but in the meantime, I need to get back on my PS2 and actually, play through it so I can talk about it with at least some expertise.
Yeah,
Because,
seriously.
again,
I've got to finish it because, like, me and Chris are the new guys, so we've got to actually finish it to talk about it.
You must finish the game.
Yeah.
I will not accept you guys not finishing. Sorry.
Okay.
well, that sounded like a threat. So,
it wasn't a threat. It was.
So maybe I should end the podcast and start playing it again. Listeners, thank you. Good night and good luck.